What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Urban Discipleship podcast. We're going to be talking about what do Americans believe about these key points of Christian doctrine. Stay with us. We're going to talk about it on the Urban Discipleship podcast.
Urban Discipleship Podcast.
What's up, everybody? I'm Pastor Rob. I'm here with Pastor John. Welcome to the Urban Discipleship Podcast, where we always endeavor to do two things. That is exalt Christ
and enhance relationships.
Yes, sir. We are so we are here. I'm getting text messages from the family. We are here. We are ready to talk about these things that these are points of doctrine, Christian teaching. A survey that was given. It seems like the survey was given to a general selection of Americans and not just evangelical Americans. But I'm sure there were plenty of evangelicals as part of the sample. But we're going to get into it. So this is from the church leaders, and we always got to shout out the church leaders. Let me set them up here. The church leaders. First page of the church leaders.
There you go.
Yeah, and it says 12 lies that American evangelicals believe, but we did some research. We had to dive deeper into there because if you look at the wording, it kept saying Americans, Americans, Americans. And so we did dive into the research, and it looks like it was a general selection of Americans and not just specifically evangelical Americans.
Yeah, because otherwise the numbers and the percentages will be even more alarming than they are.
Yeah, no. Right. I was like, oh, this is very alarming.
This is horrible. Right.
But shout out to Lifeway Research. This is from September 2016.
But we do believe, like, I know me and you personally, that the state of the American church is such that we're foggy on a lot of these things that we're going to talk about.
Yes.
Right.
It's sad. I know. I think these numbers will be a little bit better, but not massively better if it was all evangelical Christians. And you've seen different things like that. Shout out to Barna because they're like the standard for Christian research. So they do a lot of that where they are surveying Christians, evangelicals, and again, these kind of things are not very much different, but we use these articles as jumping off points so we can talk about the issues and talk about in this case these key points of doctrine.
Yeah, and also Rob, like evangelicals, when it comes to these points of doctrine, although they might be a little bit higher than the average American, it's not substantial. And you notice that usually they're highest when these beliefs are attached to some sort of social issue. So abortion, evangelicals be through the roof, right? Because it's connected to politics and social issues. And so they vote conservative, most of them.
Yep. So yeah, as the list goes on, it starts to get deeper into the social issues. So like I said, shout out to church leaders and then Lifeway Research too. We will put the link in the comments down there. Number one, personal salvation depends on good works. I was like, and now that I think about this being the just a general selection from society, I was like, oh well, we get a lot of that.
Is American ingenuity, right? American hard work. This idea that we can achieve it with grit and
Yes,
perseverance, right?
yeah,
It follows along with that mentality, that mindset.
correct. It is that if it is something good out there, I just need to put the effort in
Put the effort in.
and put the work in and get it done, and it will come to me. Um, However, the problem is the demands of salvation are something that you can never reach,
Right? You
and
can never earn.
yeah, you can never earn.
You often hear preachers say that your arms are too short to reach
Yeah,
God.
come
Right?
on, come on.
You can try as hard as you can, but the biblical record is clear that all of us have sinned and fallen short of God's glory. We're all alienated by
Mhm.
nature and by practice,
Sir.
sinners by nature and by practice. Therefore,
Yeah,
nothing that we do will ever merit the saving grace of God.
right, right.
Thank the Lord for Jesus Christ. Like Paul said in Roman at the end of Romans 7.
Romans 7. He's like, man, I keep trying to do the right thing, but
Evil is always present.
he described it as it's something within him is warring, always fighting with himself as he tries to do the right thing. But evil is always present. Number two, everyone goes to heaven. So this one was, I was like, okay, now that I know that this is a normal, just a normal sample of
Hmm.
Americans, I like makes sense. But at the same time, this was big. Was it Carlton Pearson? He had a
Yes,
documentary
yes.
on
Hmm.
Netflix. It's probably still there, uh, where he was, changing his. Well, I don't know, changing. He was coming. He was talking about his doctrine of hell and how
Hmm.
God would not be just to send anyone to hell.
Yeah. And it's this whole American notion we're going to talk about in a minute that everybody's pretty good. Few few issues. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So
Hmm.
they try hard, clean those things up a little bit. Of course, God will let them into heaven. And actually, it's not fair for God not to allow
Right.
everyone into
Right.
heaven at the end of the day.
Hmm.
The fact that God allows anybody into heaven is grace.
Come on.
Because don't nobody deserve it. None of us.
Yeah, and so
We all deserve hell.
this one always throws me off because I was like, the what the doctrine that we develop about hell, so much of it comes from the words of Jesus. This
Yes.
is not like an Old Testament. It feels like an Old Testament thing,
Right.
or maybe somebody might, people. I'm getting a lot of that too in some of these modern debates, right? People are trying to disassociate Paul from Jesus.
Yeah.
So this is not only in Paul or Peter or John or any other New Testament writer. So much of what we understand about hell
About hell.
comes from the
Hmm.
parables of Jesus.
Oh, Jesus. Yep.
So that one always
Yep.
throws me off.
And we usually, when you side on universalism, where everybody goes to heaven, you have a
Mhm,
poor doctrine of God, right? You
mhm.
don't see God as holy. You
Yes.
don't see him as infinitely pure, unstained, and unspotted by any sort of kind of sin. You know what I'm saying? God is pure. We don't understand that kind of purity
Yeah.
because everybody we know got some sort of flaw, some sort of issue. So
Yeah.
of course,
Yes.
God understands. No, God is too holy to look on evil. He will not
Mhm.
leave those who are guilty unpunished. So
That's
he
right.
has to place the rebel soul
Mhm.
in hell. His
Yes.
nature compels him to do so.
Yes. I'm already looking at the time. This is gonna be we're gonna do two parts for you guys. Don't worry. We'll split it into two parts. I will link you to part two in the comments. We'll just keep pushing here, so we won't have to create another link. But you guys look for part two here. Sin isn't important. Now, I don't know what they meant,
Mm,
but it says original sin seems anathema to most. Also, this is dealing with, and you mentioned this. You talk about sinful by
yeah.
nature and by
Mhm.
practice. I think, especially in the
Right.
West, we have a problem with that sinful by nature understanding.
Right. And then in Romans 5, Paul links our sinfulness to our attachment to Adam.
Hmm.
People hate that. Whoa, another man's actions
Right. I
has
didn't do
some bearing
nothing.
on my uh
Yes. Yes.
the
Yes.
way that I'm viewed and judged before God.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell people, if you got an issue with the impartation of Adam's sin, the imputation, excuse me, of Adam's sin to us, then you got to have an issue with the fact that God imputes Christ's righteousness
Oh, that ain't fair
to
to
us.
Christ. That's not fair to
You
Christ.
can't have one and the other, bro. Oh, you can't have one or the other.
Yes. Yes.
God
Yes.
deals with headship. That is
Mhm.
the way that He has chosen to govern His world. So
Yes.
we are all sinners because we're attached to Adam, and all of us that have believed, are are saved and pardoned because
Mm-hmm.
of our attachment to Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Um, God accept the worship of all religions. This is number 4. God accept the worship of all religions. I was like, now, I, I'm like, this is a general swath of American society, but we just have this thing, and Vodi Bakum talked about it one time in one of his sermons. He's like, there's like a 11th commandment, and this is thou shall be nice, and you
Right.
cannot say anything that someone's going to find offensive. And so
Offensive.
this is one of those things, I think, is that like
Hmm.
God, to say God does not accept the worship of all religions is offensive. And
Yeah.
but if we examine it just from a logical state, like even when we're talking about who God is, what God are you worshiping, I'm like, man, these we cannot reconcile these ideas and
No.
concepts.
I know we understand God, sin, salvation, consummation. We
Mhm.
understand all these things drastically
Yes.
differently. So to say that God accepts all worship makes God logically inconsistent, like because you have these different faiths who understand God differently and understand salvation differently. So
Yes.
how can this God just accept all worship?
It just don't even make
It
sense,
it, it,
man.
it
It's
doesn't
like
make a
like
whole lot of sense.
I'm not yeah, listen, I'm not trying to be offensive, but I will just be direct. Like I understand. And I always tell people, listen, like we both can't be right. One of
Yes,
us gotta be wrong. I'm willing to have the conversation with you, but I'm not gonna have that conversation that everybody's right.
yeah. My little brother, he's not a believer. I love him to death, but he asked me, yo, like, there's somebody just as zealous as you.
Mm-hmm.
That's um, he's he's Muslim. Like, so you telling me he gonna go to hell? I'm like, yes. Sincerity, passion, uh,
Mm-hmm.
enduring in some sort of theological system, some sort of religion. These things don't equal salvation.
Correct.
It is only by faith alone in Christ alone, to the glory of God alone, that somebody is saved.
Mm-hmm.
And it is only that heart that's been changed, transformed by such grace, that God will accept worship. What does Jesus say? He said, those that worship him, like truly
Mm-hmm.
worship him, worship God in
Right.
spirit and in truth.
Yes,
So
sir.
what you believe actually matters to true
All
worship.
right, let's get two more for this part 1. Jesus was created by God. This is number
Yeah,
5 on the list of 12. Jesus was created by God. Um,
yeah, that's pretty normal
I guess
for people that aren't
yeah,
Christians.
if you're not Christian, then you're not gonna totally understand this. I suggest everybody read C.S. Lewis's the Mere Christianity.
Yeah.
He talks
Hmm.
about the difference between making and begetting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe I'll link you to C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity in the comments. But there's a difference between making or creating and
Mm-hmm.
begetting. And then they do a very good
And
they
I like
do
the Nicene Creed.
the Nicene
I think
Creed,
it
right?
says that.
Okay, they're going to really break down what it means. Begotten of the Father, light of light, very God of very God, begotten, not made, being of one substance
Mm-hmm.
with the Father. So, yes,
Yeah. Can you hear me?
yeah, I'm with you. You still here?
Okay. I like that part of the Nicene Creed where it says that that Jesus is begotten,
Mm-hmm.
not made. Right? It helps you to understand that he has eternally been the Son.
Yes.
He became human. He put on human flesh.
Yeah.
However, he has always existed. I think
Mm-hmm.
John says he was always wasn't right. So he
That's
always
right.
existed.
That is
I think
so.
Kent Hughes put it that way.
Mm-hmm. So true. That's John 1:1, man, from the
One,
beginning,
yeah,
and John is using similar words to Genesis 1:1,
yeah.
and trying to explain how to understand the existence of the Son, Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move to number 6 for this last one in this first part. Number 6 says the Holy Spirit is a force. That's number 6. The Holy Spirit is a force. Again, I do not know what to make of that terminology. Um, and I think in general, American society, they will not understand or
Mm-hmm.
even seek to understand the Trinity. What do we mean by three and one and that sort of thing? So, what is a person? Right?
Yeah,
They're not looking for those kind of technicalities.
yeah. Those nuances and distinctions don't play well in the mainstream culture.
Mm-hmm.
So, and sometimes it's thought that the Holy Spirit is a force. It can make it into the way we talk, our
Yeah.
dialect, our normative speech. We'll say it and things of that sort, even as Orthodox Christians. But the Holy Spirit is a person. He has intellect, emotion, and will. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He has personhood fully. Like I think about the fact that we can grieve the Holy Spirit.
That's right.
Right? I think about the fact that He determines what spiritual gifts that members of the body are given. Like these
Yeah.
things just that's volition. Like these things just prove to us that the Holy Spirit is a person and not a force.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yes.
and you that means talk to him. You know that
That's right.
that means that we can engage with him.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was listening to uh, that book on spiritual leadership by Oswald Sanders, and he talks about praying in the spirit. It's just
Mm.
understanding, like, yo, the spirit is not an it. Like I am connected and filled by him,
Right.
and he affects the way in which I live, the way in which I pray, and the way in which I minister.
Exactly. Exactly. Cool. All right. We're going to continue on with number 7 through 12. Right now, we're going to let you go from this first video and remind you to do 2 things. That is love God.
And each other.
Catch you next.
Peace.
Urban Discipleship Podcast.